Very excited to have my friend back on the show, Bridget Truxillo. And she was been on one time before. I think I screwed up and messed up another recording, which is why she's back.
No, you did. Yes, I'm back.
Welcome, Bridget. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always fun to chat with you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Now, for those obviously I know your background. Some people that might be listening might know who you are, but for those who are listening that don't know who you are, Bridget, who are you? What's your background?
Well, I did talk with my therapist this morning, so I could give you that version. I'm just kidding. I did actually talk with my therapist this morning, so it's a good day. And I think all humans should talk to a therapist.
Absolutely.
We just talked about that. But anyway, my name is Bridget Truxillo. I am an attorney. I'm former law enforcement. I was a deputy sheriff in Florida. I was undercover narcotics and on the SWAT team. And because I was on SWAT team, I left law enforcement to go to law school. So I've been an attorney for coming on 15 years. And my business now is I specialize in representing law enforcement and, unfortunately, civil matters like harassment, discrimination, hostile work environment. But I also advise on workers' comp issues. And lately, I'm getting more and more calls, unfortunately, on officers who've been placed on the Brady Giglio lists, which is a potentially career-ending issue. But I also am passionate about helping law enforcement on their wellness. So that's how you and I first got connected. Is I have a wellness business called Protective Wellness. And within that, I have a course that I put together called Wellness Basic Training, because I think many officers could take the time to really figure out what wellness means for them, and then figure out ways to implement wellness routines into their life. So that's what Wellness Basic Training is. I'm an attorney. I'm passionate about law enforcement wellness, and I'm a mom of 3 kids and the wife to a handsome husband.
I remember the last time. Well, glad to have you back, Bridget. The last time David, your son David, was on the show. He made like a cameo appearance.
He made an appearance. Yeah.
It was like, Mom, meatloaf.
It was in the summer, so he was my cute little baby boy. I think he had just like woken up from a nap or something. And
what movie is that from? I'll be very surprised if you know what that movie is. Mom,
I don't know.
That's from Wedding Crashers. Like, that's Will Ferrell. He's living with his mom. And
wait, I was going to say, I maybe would have come up with that. Yes, that's a great movie.
So you went to law school. Now, did you always want to be a lawyer? What was the catalyst? You left law enforcement. You did a great career. You were in SWAT, all that cool stuff. What was the aha moment where you said, I want to go to law school? Because there's not a lot of lawyers out there, Bridget. We need more lawyers. That's a joke.
Yeah, exactly. If only we had as many cops as we have lawyers, we'd be in a good place. So I chose law enforcement intentionally. Like, I wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be from a young age. Fed, so I went. No. Okay, so no, not at all. When I was graduating from high school, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. And that's because I had read and watched the movie The Firm.
Ooh, good movie.
The movie is with Tom Cruise.
John Grisham.
And John Grisham, great book, good movie. And which is ridiculous because what you might not realize is in that movie, in that book, he's a tax attorney. And I don't want anything to do with tax. And I went to college, went to University of Florida, and I don't remember, but whatever class I was in, I was like, oh, I don't want to do whatever major I needed to do to get to law school. I was like, this sucks. And so then I switched to engineering, which was crazy because I didn't really understand what that meant either. And
a lot of math
and sciences. And then I ended up graduating not in engineering, with horticulture. But I got the stupid degree. At that point, I just wanted to get the stupid degree. I was already in my mid-20s. It's a long story, early 20s, and because I got cut off by my dad. And right when I was graduating University of Florida, I realized I didn't want to work in horticulture. I didn't know what to do, and I joke and say that I watched G.I. Jane and I thought that'd be cool, so I decided to become a cop. But it's silly because there was something more to it. I wanted something that required me to be fit. I really liked the idea of helping and having a job that makes a difference, because even though all cops out there, you feel like what you do doesn't make a difference, but it does. I mean, imagine a world without law enforcement. What we do, what you do matters. And so then when I and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I got on a narcotics unit, and I got on SWAT, and I was just, working out and working just like crazy. And I loved it. And then it all went to shit. Sorry if you have to bleep this. And I literally had no idea what to do with my life. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be in horticulture. I wanted to be in law enforcement, but that came crashing down. And then I decided, I was so aggravated with the guys I'd worked with that I was like, I'm going to go to law school and prove to you that you're stupid. And which, it's not healthy. And I went to law school, not really knowing what to do with it, not choosing it in the way that I chose law enforcement. Like, I wanted to do law enforcement. I was designing my life around law enforcement. But with law school, I was like, I don't know, I guess I'll go to law school, which is dumb considering how awful law school is. But I did it.
Expensive.
And I did law school. It's
and
very
pricey.
Expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but I also know it's never a bad thing to have a law degree.
Oh, no.
And
yeah.
I knew I could do it. I didn't really know how crappy it would be, but it was really crappy. But I also did law school in 2.5 years instead of 3. So I crammed it in a little bit faster because I started law school at 30 years old. So I just wanted to get the heck out and start working. So I don't know. I just feel like became an attorney, but I would say I didn't really choose it. I was just trying to find an alternative, if that makes sense. But now, I mean, I wouldn't undo any of it, even my emotionally and mentally challenging law enforcement experiences, because I'm better able to help law enforcement now because of all of that. So I'm certainly very happy. I have all the tools at my disposal now, including the emotional wound tools that we all
absolutely
have. So I can help others more because of that, I think.
Now you do a lot with law enforcement. You work, as an attorney with law enforcement. You mentioned Brady. Now, can we dive into that a little bit? Because some people, I know what Brady is, being on a Brady list and things like that. You do, obviously. Some listeners probably do, but some people don't. What is the case that you just cited, and what are the implications of getting on a Brady list?
Well, there's actually 2 different cases. It's the Brady case and there's a Giglio case, but they're similar holdings from the court. And the part that matters in this context is that obviously we all know cops have to be trustworthy. You can't lie. You can't lie. You don't have to tell people you're a cop when you're undercover. That's a lie. You don't. No, really? Yeah. Are you a cop? You have to tell me. No. Okay, sell me crack. All right, fine. And later, you were supposed to tell me you're a cop. No, I'm not supposed to do that. That's why they call it dope, because you're dumb. So if you do something as a cop that is untrustworthy, meaning you have no credibility, that you can't rely on you being a truthful witness, then an attorney, a district attorney, the state level, is required to disclose that to the defense. And what ends up happening is, and they're not required, they're required to disclose exculpatory evidence, things that could help the defense do their job in defending their client. And that includes the state attorney is required to disclose if any cop involved in a case did something that could bring their truthfulness into question. I get, as an attorney, as a cop, I'm a rule follower. I get that it's a good thing to do because you would never want to send somebody to jail on lies, based
Yeah,
on
lie.
lies. We know it's
Yeah.
happened. It's horrible when it happens. But at the same time, what has happened is that district attorneys or chiefs get involved, or somebody within your agent get involved in getting cops put on this Brady Goodwill list. Once you're put on this list, the state attorney or the district attorney then sends this out to every single defense attorney in their district saying this cop is a liar.
Mm-hmm.
That basically means you can never be a witness, which basically means you can never bring any cases anymore. And then your agency then is like, what am I going to do with you? They have the option to keep you on, but what would they do with you if you can't be trusted to bring criminal charges against people? Because that's what we do as cops. And ultimately you get fired, especially if it's a small department. And so, unfortunately, it's being used when you make a district attorney mad. I just was consulting with a guy recently who ended up investigating an ADA or assistant state attorney for doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. And then there was some question as to how deep that went. And then the district attorney was saying, give me the case. And he's like, I'm not going to do that because there's a conflict of interest here. He sent it to another outside agency. That pissed off the district attorney. So then he put him on a Brady Giglio list and found a reason to put him on it. Found a reason. Now, which means that they should never take any of his cases. They're not taking any of his misdemeanor cases, but they are taking his felony cases because that, the bigger the felony case, the more that matters to these politicians. So sure. It's complete crap. Another girl was put on this Brady Giglio list. It's a really small department, really small county district. She was put on this Brady Giglio list, and the chief immediately used that to fire her. And it was really just a contextual reason to push her out because she's the only female in the department. It's a very small department, and they wanted to get rid of her anyway. And it was obvious from the history that she'd had for about a year. You run against somebody and you lose, and they put you on the Brady Giglio list, and then you get fired. I mean,
go
it's
ahead.
Horrible.
Now, is there any recourse for an officer? I'm sure it varies probably state by state what the statutes say. I mean, is there any recourse for an officer who lands on a list, on a Brady list? Can they is there a hearing? Can they appeal this? Can they fight to keep off this list?
Unfortunately, a lot of times no, which I know that means coming from an attorney, like, what good are you to me? But some states, yes. The problem is that there's no system, there's no nationwide, statewide, whatever system for how it's implemented or what your recourse is once it is implemented. You're not even entitled to some type of appeal or investigation once you are on the list. I've certainly talked with people who their department took it upon themselves that once they got put on the list, and rightly so, internal affairs can look into it to see if it's justified. You come out with it unjustified, that your IA didn't find anything wrong with, unfounded basically. And then some state attorney's office will still leave your name on the list. So unfortunately, but what is happening is that states are starting to see the need to have statutes around this job killing list, basically. And like where I live in Texas, there's a bill coming up for proposal this year. Texas only meets every odd year, so every 2 years. So this year, thankfully, that's on the table for them to discuss. I know it was I think Illinois was enacted this year, but they haven't really had time to deal with the enforcement end of it. So it really depends state by state. And sadly enough, the smaller the area you work in, probably the less recourse you have.
Yeah, just because there's no resources, probably.
Right, but then depending on the facts around it. I mean, so like the girl that I worked with this summer, I mean, there was some harassment. Is that just a tool for harassment? Is it a tool for hostile work environment? So there's other things.
Isn't that hard to prove, though?
It is hard to prove because a state attorney has qualified immunity available to them, just like we as cops do. And it's really hard to overcome that. But really, at the end of the day, what you want is to get your name off the list.
Sure.
And unfortunately, a lot of times you have to get that only through the actual or threat of a lawsuit.
And can this, Bridget, like open up like a Pandora's box? Say I get put on a Brady list. could an attorney say, well, now we're going to look at all these other cases, these prior cases that he was involved in. But you know what I mean? Like a ripple domino effect. Okay, since he's not trustworthy anymore, we're going to go back years and look at all these cases that he was involved in because maybe he did something wrong with those cases. Does that make sense?
Yes, and yes, it can. Although
I guess it depends on the circumstances.
Right, it's a high bar. So, for example, unfortunately, in the city where I live, Houston, I like Houston, but there was this Houston cop, HPD. You've probably heard the story where he fabricated some evidence, got a search warrant. They went in a search warrant. 2 people died, and then come to find out they never should have been in the house anyway because the guy lied about the facts he put in his sworn affidavit, which is part of a search warrant. And then once they started looking at it, he's been a dirty cop for a long time. So yes, they are for that
particular case, they can go back.
But really, they're looking at jail time, things like that, where it depends. But
it's good.
Yes, it definitely can. But
yeah,
that would be pretty rare because that would be hard to prove.
Do you
I'm not saying somebody wouldn't try to do that, but it would be hard to prove for somebody trying to get that.
Do you think that Brady and Giglio are used for more good than they are bad, or do you think it's like anything else? I mean, there are players in there that can use these 2 cases to really go after somebody when there's no just cause, or do you think? I'm sure that happens, like you said, but do you think it's good to have these in place overall?
I 100% believe that you should turn over, like I said, exculpatory evidence to the defense to allow someone to properly defend themselves. Do I think that a Brady Giglio list is necessary for that? I want to say no. And knowing what I know about the law and case law is that I would have to really go back and look at the case history to see how that evolved. And I haven't done that to understand how did we ever even get to this point, because you are required to turn that over. We know there's dirty cops, but that's by far a small percentage.
It's a very small
percentage. But there
percentage.
are dirty DAs, but that's also a small percentage. So when I say there are state attorneys going out there and using these in the wrong way, I am not suggesting that's the majority. But you could Google it. I mean, it's unfortunately becoming too common.
Sure. And you would know. I mean, being a
with
lawyer.
No repercussions for the DA, and that's what I think. Unfortunately, would have to happen is for a DA to think, I have qualified immunity if I make a decision in litigating a case that I thought was right at the time, given the information I knew. But this, to me, takes it out of that realm. To me, what we've tried to argue in the past is that it's not within the scope of your performance of your duties. This is outside of it. You trying to ruin a cop's career for the unjustified reasons takes you out of it's just like with cops. Sometimes qualified immunity doesn't apply, meaning the court has decided that you did not take the right actions given what you knew at the time, the circumstances in the moment and what you knew or should have known. That's an important legal distinction, what you knew or should have known. And qualified immunity for cops is broad because courts have said, like, look, we're not in the moment. We're not going to second guess cops. There's no way we can't put ourselves in your shoes. So we're just going to have to look at this and
totality of
50,000 foot view. Right. Totality of the circumstances. And so, but there are times where the courts say, look, it's not qualified immunity. It doesn't apply. But what that means is the lawsuit can go forward against you. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're being sued, Patrick, you got into a use of force situation and the court says, no, qualified immunity doesn't apply. What that means is the lawsuit's not dismissed against you. It means it's going to go forward. It doesn't mean you're going to go to jail automatically. It just means
the suit's going to go
deposition.
Forward.
Yeah. And then attorneys are going to have to do depositions and answer questions and maybe blah, blah, blah. So I think that there should be something that the DAs are held, some type of standard they're held to, and that if it's that they could be investigated, or that they say you can do this, but somehow that it's not protected actions, because it is coming out that it's being done for the wrong reasons, or it is coming out that it's political, or that it's sexist, or that it's whatever. And that's not what it's intended for. Like I said, I'm a big stickler for the rules. I'm a big stickler. Like, if you do something wrong, you should be held accountable for it.
Sure.
And so that's where I have a problem with the Brady Giglio list is, if you're giving people this power, then there has to be accountability, and there's not. So
interesting.
And I don't know that it's necessary when you also have the rules that you're required to turn over the exculpatory evidence. I don't really understand. I mean, another part of Brady is that another case law is things like, you can't, if you're interviewing a witness, you can't overwhelm them with too many cops in the room, because then it can be like you're forcing an admission that you wouldn't have gotten had they not been scared for how many cops there's. There's different parts of that, and there's other case law that apply in that situation. So I don't think that's really what the heart of it was about, and how it's being used.
Yeah. Now, what else do you help lawyers? You mentioned harassment, or help law enforcement. Is harassment still? I mean, it's always been an issue, I guess, in the workplace, not just in law enforcement agencies. But do you see a lot of that? When you're talking with law enforcement and taking on cases. I mean, is that a big part of it, like harassment within agencies? And that could go like sexual harassment, other workplace harassments, correct? Yes.
You would not believe the stupid stuff that you would. We've both been cops. We've heard it all. And listen, I am not talking about.
It's like herding cats.
I'm not talking about. No kidding. I mean, I've been on SWAT team. So I've heard all the shit, and so I've heard the jokes, and there are some of them were like, I'm not saying like dirty jokes. That's not what I'm talking about. That's for you to decide. If somebody tells you a dirty joke that you think is offensive, do what you want to do with that. I'm not saying like, call me if you need help determining if that rises to the level of a lawsuit, but I'm talking about like straight up sexual harassment statements that people make in front of people and then say it twice. I mean, it's just dumb stuff that they say to women. I'm going to probably have a call next week with this guy, I mean, literally grabbed her ass in front of a bunch of people in a very harassing, like, you can't, I mean,
he's a cop.
So like saying it, yes, to another female cop in front of a bunch of guy cops. And in fact, in that situation, the guy cops got so mad about it that they reported it before she did. And unfortunately, the chief's not supporting her. So, I mean, what I can say is, the bigger the agency, the more hopeful. Most of the time, the better results you will get on reporting those type of things. The smaller the agency, the more chances that you'll get screwed somehow. Doesn't mean you don't have any options, but yes, I do consult with a lot of women, especially on harassment, discrimination, hostile work environment type stuff.
Now, when it comes to hostile work environment, I mean, is that hard to prove too, or is it all based on the evidence?
It is. So, like in my situation, I always said, I'd get in trouble and I'd get ready to get in trouble. And I'd get in trouble. And I would always be like, okay, they're right. I made a mistake. Okay, they're right. I made a mistake. Okay, they're right. I made a mistake. But at some point, you start to look around and say, hold on a second. I'm the only one being treated this way. And there's a more technical definition of it. And call me if you really want to talk about it, because I won't bore anybody with it. But it can become so extreme that it's actions intended to drive someone out, and that becomes what's called more circumstantial evidence. You guys know it's circumstantial evidence versus direct evidence. So it's not like somebody's like says to you, I'm going to do this to you on purpose, so I'm going to force you to quit. I mean, some people do say stupid stuff like that, but other times it's that you don't have direct statements, or somebody saying I'm intentionally going to do this. So you just build it and say, well, this is, look at these 6 people and these 5 did it this way, but this one person did it, and you just went after. Like, you can't do that. And so it's hard though, because by the letter of the law or the letter of the policy, maybe there's some mistakes. Like with me, did I make a mistake? Yes. Did I forget to lock a door on the SWAT van? Yes. But what happens when one of my SWAT guys leaves his entire car full of ammunition open in the hood for 2 hours? Like, what would have happened if those? Yeah. So you just have to build it. And that's what I advise people on, is where to get started. And there's so many factors to consider. Like I keep saying, the size of your department and how long and what's happening. And, an EEOC claim is where a lot of people can start. Well, starting a complaint within your department is where you start, but then also an EEOC claim. And then, what are your lawsuit options? And so, who would you sue? And, it depends on who you work for as to who you should sue and that kind of stuff. So yes, unfortunately, it's still very much prevalent.
Well, it just blows my mind. Not only is it inappropriate, obviously you went back to the touching of the one cop to another cop, but you would think in this day and age where there's such a more heightened sense of awareness, with that, not only is it wrong, but, we're constantly going through sexual harassment training and doing all these things per policy.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that people would be like, I might be thinking that, but I'm not going to do that. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, know your audience, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Well, one of the things that I've been trying to educate women on, because I work within a lot of female law enforcement groups, but this is not specific to women. It could just be somebody that they consider, they meaning
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
The good old boy network that they consider different, is one of my biggest regrets. And I was like, I don't know if you know Merrick Castle. I'm just gonna say Merrick. So I'm gonna say his last name wrong. He has this new podcast called Brownie and Blue. You should be on, by the way, if you haven't. Have you been on his podcast?
No, I haven't.
Merritt. Oh, you should. He's a really, really great, genuine guy. Y'all would connect well. And he was asking me, I was telling him my whole story. He says, do you have any regrets? And I said, no, I don't. I would still go through all of it. He's like, no, because I didn't report any of it. And that is a regret, because while it would be one way you can look at it is, it's going to be hard. They're going to push me out. They're going to fire me. I'm going to have to quit, blah, blah, blah. But another way to look at it is, you don't know what to fix if you don't know what's broken. And if you're not reporting something that's happening, well, how could my sergeant have ever been known or been forced to change if somebody wasn't told, this is what this guy is doing to me? And so number one is, if you want change, you have to point out where the change needs to happen. And then number two is, you got to keep that power for yourself, because as tough as I was on SWAT team and did all this crazy shit, bought crack. I mean, going into houses where people were holding guns, and good Lord, but yet I never once said anything about the harassment that I was dealing with. And you just put things out there. You think, oh, they'll respect my work. Oh, they'll respect my work. Someday they'll respect my work. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to push the envelope in order for things to get to where they need to be. And that is what I say is my biggest regret, is that I should have, even when I was explicitly asked by my captain, do you have anything you would like to tell me? And I said, no, because I want them to remember me for my work, not from my complaints.
Sure.
But in hindsight, you don't know what's broken unless you know you need to fix it. So
now, could some, or for a listener out there who might be thinking, Bridget, okay, this happened to me. I was in law enforcement, male, female, whatever. But it happened like 2 years ago. Is there or 3 years ago or whatever? Is there a statute of limitations on this? Is there like a time when you have to report it, or can you, because of various reasons, you decide not to say anything and then you exit and do something else, and then you figure, or are you thinking, okay, this screwed me up, I'm going to go back and complain? I mean, that's a long ramble, but yes, I mean, is there like a statute of limitations on that?
For sure.
I guess it depends on the state, probably.
This state, like some states it's 1, some states it's 2, some it's 4, some it's 6, depending on what it is. And like I said, I've practiced across the country. I've filed lawsuits in many different states. And so, it's very different. In general, it's 2 years, except for if you're going to make an EEOC claim, it's days. So you have a very short window, and it's basically 180 days from the incident.
Now, explain what an EEO claim is, really quick.
Equal Opportunity Employment Commission is when you cannot be discriminated against based upon sex, your race,
religion,
your age,
all that stuff.
Yeah, all that. So, but that includes hostile work environment. You can make an EEOC claim for hostile work environment, and That's not a lawsuit. It's not the same thing. You make a claim. They're going to notify your employer about it. There's other options I can do. Contact me and I can explain that if you want to know how it works. And you do need to make an EEOC claim, and you should before you file a lawsuit, because one of the things the EEOC claim can do is at the end, if they find it that it's founded, then they give you what's called a right to sue letter. You could potentially get what you want out of it. If you want money, maybe you could. It's unlikely you would get something like money out of an EEOC claim. That's more of what lawsuits are for. But if you get the right to sue, then that helps your lawsuit.
Sure.
Because they've already done an investigation.
They've already said, yeah, it's good to go.
Yeah. So you do have a timeline within the EEOC. You have a statute within the state, but it's never too late to make a claim within your department, especially in things like harassment, discrimination. Maybe if you were physically assaulted or accosted somehow, maybe it's possible that you could be afraid of especially as a female, the person that your supervisor, whatever the situation is, and that you're just waiting for that person to not be a threat to you anymore. You can always, you should always make a claim in your department. Again, they don't know what to fix if they don't know if it's broken. Now, I'm not saying they're going to want to fix that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I am not saying that that's going to be easy. But what I am saying is, for your own mental health, do it. Make the claim, report it, do it. You have to do it, because like I said, I didn't. And that mentally and emotionally took me a long time to get over. And that part's not worth it.
Now, when you make a claim, say you blow the whistle and you make a claim against, your agency, whatever it is, then the wheels are now set in motion. Mm-hmm. Isn't there protections for the people or the officer or whoever that are in place that can protect them while still on the job from any kind of repercussions?
That's a great question, because one of the things that's also covered under EEOC is retaliation. That can also be in a lawsuit. And so let's say you've missed your 180 days and you finally report something, they cannot retaliate against you for that. And so then you say, oh, well, I reported this because here's why it took me so long and I was so afraid or whatever. And then then they demote you, or they fire you, or they whatever, something unjustified. That if you can, and that's not easy to prove, but if you're going to claim retaliation, then you get to do that. Those are separate claims.
Sometimes it's not easy to prove, but sometimes it is.
Depending,
sometimes paper
sometimes
trails.
They give you nice, real stupid statements in front of witnesses.
It's amazing. You're doing such great work out there. Now, if people wanted to reach out to you, Bridget, and say, mm-hmm. Look, I want to retain you. I want some advice. I need to, because everybody always needs to talk to a lawyer at some point,
mm-hmm.
Especially
mm-hmm.
when they're in organizations and stuff like that. How can they reach out to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can go to my website, ladylawshield.com.
Amazing website, by the way. And check out her Instagram, which is awesome.
Thank you. Also, you should follow Protective Wellness, because I do some good wellness stuff on there. But if you want, for legal stuff, go to my website. You can see on there that you can book a call with me at any time. You just jump on, because it's a law firm. I got to keep track of people. So you got to put your name, put your state in there, because then that helps me understand where you're coming from. And because, like I said, every state's different. And then you just book a 15-minute call with me, and then we can talk through a lot. Sometimes I've literally said, you don't need me to get this started. Let me tell you what to do. I did that just the other day. This girl needed some help.
You, as a lawyer, you're just telling people that? I remember when I would talk to my lawyer when I was going through the divorce, I hear the clicking.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I've been a cop.
Billable hours.
My first salary when I was a cop was $27,500 a year. Now, I don't know what they start at now, but I can tell you that's what I made. And it's probably not that much higher considering the area it's in.
Sure.
So I know you don't make that much money. I've been an attorney for a long time, and I know that you don't always need an attorney to get the answers you need. Or one of the things I do is say, look, this is what a lot of times I'll do, just a 1-hour consultation, and I just charge my 1 hourly rate, and I get you set up for you to get where you need to go. But then that's 1 hour. You don't need to pay me a $5,000 retainer if I can help you for 1 hour. I do that because I'm passionate for helping law enforcement. I believe strongly that getting answers to legal questions is in and of itself a wellness tool, because if I can help you worry less or just know how to navigate something, then I'm going to help you be happier on and off the job, help you make better decisions on the job because you're not as distracted with worry. So yeah, I can't always do that. I mean, this summer I had a call with a girl for an hour, and then she ended up hiring me for, it ended up being close to 20 hours of work. But a lot of times that's all you need is 1 hour from me. And a lot of people can afford that. And I want it to be affordable, and I want to help. So
Amazing.
that's very important to me.
Now, does somebody have to be in Texas, Bridget? Because say somebody's listening and they're in Arizona and they want to contact you. I mean, can you, how does that work? I mean, because you're not in Arizona practicing law.
Right.
So do you research the Arizona law and go from there, or what?
A lot of times it's case evaluation, which will happen like in that hour, and I don't need to be licensed in your state to do that. I am a licensed lawyer in 4 states, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, and New York. But even then, and then if it gets to the point like you're in Arizona, I'm helping you, and if you don't have an attorney, then I can help you find that. I can connect you with somebody that's, hopefully law enforcement friendly. I always look
but
for
you have the network
in other states that,
you have the network for that. So.
Right. And I want somebody who is law enforcement friendly, or somebody who, it's hard to find attorneys who are ex-cops that do all the different types of legal work. But what I look for is, that's one of the things I offer is helping, and I can do it. Sometimes it requires a little bit of payment because it might take me a minute, but I do know attorneys across the country and members of associations with even more attorneys. And so sometimes all you need is a little bit of advice to get started, but sometimes you do need to actually start filing things in your state. And if I'm not licensed where you are, no offense, but I'm not taking another bar exam. I'm not going to do it, but I can help you find somebody who does.
That's amazing.
I've actually taken 4 different bar exams, and I'm not doing another one.
Jeez.
Just
what's let me see, 4? How many? What's 46 more? Come on.
No thanks. My husband joked and said that when I passed, the last one I took was Louisiana, and when I got the results, I texted him, I was like, oh my God, I passed, because state bar exams are awful. And he joked, he said, great, so when are you taking California bar exam? And I texted him back, I was like, that's not effing funny. Like, no, because California, from what I've heard, is the most brutal, but they're all brutal. So anyway, amazing. Yeah.
Bridget Truxillo, thank you so much, my friend. For those listeners out there that need a top former cop and a lawyer, Bridget's information will be linked up in the show notes. She's amazing. You got to follow her on social media. She does switching gears a little bit, but you know, we scratch the surface about mindfulness. With protective wellness, tell us what you do every week, really quick, on Instagram.
Well, every Friday morning, I just changed the time. I don't know if you noticed that. It's now at 9:30 instead of 6:30. So I want to capture a different,
because I would log on at like
crowd.
0:30 and it would already be done.
I know. So I do live. It's called Neurological Reset. That language, I am a certified yoga for first responder instructor. I'm also a yoga teacher. I've taken I've done regular yoga certification, and then I got the extra one through Yoga for First Responders, because I believe that yoga is a phenomenal tool for law enforcement to process and release stress. I know that you believe in that too. You've done yoga, you meditate because you've meditated with me. It's great. But every Friday morning I do live meditation. If you miss it, you can watch the video. I've been trying to make those a little bit shorter because I want people to do it. And so I give a couple of minutes of chat and then a short neurological reset or meditation. But every Friday I do it. Absolutely. Even when I'm on vacation, I do it.
Well, when you're on vacation, you need to be spending time for you.
Well, it was early and my kids was like, I just slipped off and did like a 10-minute meditation. So we should be doing that anyway. Stick to your routine. So
Bridget
I don't always exercise on vacation, but I did meditate on vacation.
You're amazing, my friend. Thank you for coming on. I want to have you back on. We can dive deep again into the mindfulness aspect of things when it comes to first responders.
Yeah.
Everything we talked about will be in the show notes, folks. Bridget, I will talk with you soon. Thanks for being on.
We'll talk soon. Thank you.